seconds and it'll show up. All right, I think we're live now.
Great. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see everybody.
Hello.
Good to see you. Hi.
Good to see you all.
Hello from the Surf Shack, chilly Toronto.
Warmest place in Toronto.
Yeah. So it's great to have the group back, and we have a special guest today, Jarell Lambert from Insight Alliance. And Jarell, we'll get to you to talk about your experience working with Anna and working with youth in the community, which I'm personally really excited about because it's a big part of what I get to do in my work as well. But for anybody joining us, maybe for the first time, what we're doing today is really profiling some work of 3 really significant organizations who are doing work with different populations, but around a shared idea that if we can help people understand how their mind works, we can unlock resilience, creativity, compassion for one another. We can actually get to the heart of the issues that cause most of the big problems we see around us in our own communities, but around the world as well. And so we want to talk about the work that each one of them does a little bit, but also something very exciting for next year, which is an incubator that they've created to give other people that are interested in learning about how the mind works and unlocking problems that are around them, to give them a chance to see behind the scenes the work that these great professionals do in their day-to-day jobs. So we'll start with a quick little introduction about the 3 organizations. The organizations have come together under the title of the iOS Collective. You can go to ioscollective.org if you want to learn more about the collective itself, but let's go through each of you to learn more about your individual organizations. Maybe we'll start with Brooke from the Spark Initiative based in Florida.
Quickly, I'll just say that the Spark Initiative, as you said, is based in Tampa, Florida, and we work primarily with at-risk youth in the school system here, as well as the foster care system and the local, the juvenile justice system. We also work with sex traffic survivors in our area. And like you said, we work with this population to teach them about their innate resilience and how their mind works, and how they can better utilize what they have at their fingertips.
Beautiful. And Anna from the Insight Alliance out of Oregon.
Yeah, so we're in Portland. We're based in Portland, Oregon. We primarily work, worked in the prison system in Oregon. So we work within jails and prisons here, but we also work with folks as they transition back into the community, people on parole and probation, and actually just recently with the federal parole too. So that's been so far the majority of our work is focused in criminal justice.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the same, getting people to tap into their innate resilience to then live lives prison free.
All right. Powerful. Eric and Mara out of Chicago at One Solution. Give us a little quick summary of the work that you guys are doing.
Well, our main kind of vision is to just highlight the idea that the problems we face in the world right now are internally created, that the mind is at the source of what we see in the world right now. So that's our main focus, is finding a lot of different ways to show that via doing programs, via traveling around the world, via creating media and art, via talking about it, any type of way that we can figure out to try to show that message, that if we want to create societal change, we have to look internally and look at the minds of the people creating them. So that's our main focus, but we are based in Chicago. We're heavily prioritizing youth and families and schools to try to create holistic community change here in Chicago. So that's our main hub, is working out of Chicago from that standpoint.
That's great. So clearly a big focus on addressing the needs of challenged communities, I guess might be one way of putting it. Of communities that maybe the environment around them or the system around them, the way government surrounds them, doesn't always provide the intentional support to get them out of the situation they're in. You've come at it from a very different perspective. And this is where I'd like to go to Jarell, because we see lots of programs for youth, Jarell, that are sort of symptoms focused. You know, they look at the behaviors and they try to create a distraction from one behavior by creating a new behavior. But it seems that the work with Insight Alliance is actually trying to get back to the source of the behavior we don't want to see before it happens in the first place, or at least early enough in their lives that they can redirect themselves versus having to go into programs that try to do that for them. And I'm curious, what drew you to that message, and sort of what drew you to Anna and to this idea that the mind actually held the solution to what you were seeing in youth around you?
Well, I would say I just bring it back to my time of incarceration, right? There are many things that you're searching for to find a release, right? And you're just trying to find some type of freedom, like within the cave, right? Within that captivity. And so soul searching, you're looking for programs and things like that, and some things may apply to others that that you may be interested in, some not. So I was digging, and I just kept digging, and I had another guy that was encouraging me to try all these other things. But when I stepped into Anna's class, it was just something that first off, it was her approach to the message that she was given is what made the biggest difference too. But for me, it gave me it helped me understand something about myself that I never knew my entire life. So that gave me a huge insight, right? And that's where the insight comes from, because I got an insight about understanding something about myself and how I was feeling, right? She explained it perfectly and it made sense, and that's why I took on to it so fluently, and it's been helpful for me ever since.
So do you recall what that insight was in terms of how your mind worked, that if you'd known that when you're a teenager or younger, might have changed the course of things that happened in your life?
Yeah, I think that as if I had learned those things as a youngster. Now there's a lot of things that would have to come into place for that to work, right? Like I would have to be receptive to it, a time of being receptive to a message like that, and things like that. But I feel like if this was something that was in school, yes, it would make a big change with how you progress as an adult, right? And having that in practice, I feel like would make the biggest change in this entire world, to be honest. So.
And I love the comment about being ready to receive. And maybe we could actually go around the group, because you're all working with different audiences, and I've got to think that sort of receptiveness to your message is critical to getting the success that you're looking for from your efforts. So maybe Brooke, if you could lead us off, like when you're introducing this to your audiences, sort of what's the reaction? How are you navigating introducing something that maybe they've never really considered before?
Well, I think because what we're talking about is just common, irregardless of who you're talking to. It's a human nature thing. It's not just some people have it, some people don't. It doesn't really take a whole lot of time for people to see what we're speaking about in themselves in one way or another. Now, the resistance might come in the sense of, well, you don't know my life, right? Like you haven't walked in my shoes, so you have no idea how I would feel about X, Y, and Z, or how this looks to me. And that part is true, right? But when you peel back those layers and say, yeah, but what is common for all of us? What is true for all of us and how our mind works? And as soon as someone gets a glimpse of, oh, I do have innate resilience inside of me, like it's always been there, and I can look back and see times it's been there, or I do have this potential of my mind that I utilize sometimes but don't utilize at other times. As soon as they get a kind of a picture of that, or just like a glimpse of that, the resistance kind of falls apart, because it's true in everybody. That's there in every single person. It's just kind of like Jarell said, sometimes you just don't notice it until someone points it out to you. And then once someone points it out to you, you're like, holy crap, where's this been my whole life? Oh, it has been there. And I do have access to it. And that's just, it's just an easy conversation.
Yeah. Any different, Anna, in your experience within the criminal justice system? Did it
No, I mean, I
hard
think-
sell initially?
No, I know. Well, it's grown through word of mouth, and I think that there's several programs in prison and everywhere really that say that if you just do this, then you're going to be okay, or if you get better at doing that, then life's going to get better, or if something outside of you is like you're constantly searching, you're constantly looking for something outside of you. And I think that the unique and unusual element of starting our program is, there's nothing I'm going to be saying that you don't already know. We're I'm coming in here to level playing field. You're not broken and you don't need fixing. And I think in prison that's such a unique message, because I think people live with the labels of criminal, addict, broken, bad, monster, all these kind of things, that then you start to hear them enough, you start to think it's true. But then, like Brooke said, you start to point people back to their innate health, which resides inside all human beings. And then it starts to resonate because it's just true. So even if you get people at the beginning, which is actually not that many, wanting to resist it or wanting to kind of be the person and go, yeah, but what about this? Or what about this? Once they start to experience it for themselves, because I'm not in the job of trying to convince anyone of anything. And so I don't try and kind of have an intellectual argument about why this is true, because it's just not really that, helpful or interesting. Because you try and have an argument with someone in prison, you're not going to win it, but if you're just pointing people to what's already true, then they answer their own questions. And so it doesn't take long for people to recognize, the universality of what we're sharing. And I think, as Brooke said, that we're all different and we've walked different paths and we've had very, very different life experiences. But underneath that, what's universally true for all of us? And I think that's what's so beautiful about the programs, that you can have very different people in the room and they start to see what brings, how we're connected versus how we're different. And then actually, gives people commonality to have a different sort of conversation amongst themselves as well as within themselves.
Right. Very interesting. So Eric and Mara, I know that you've worked with a lot of different audiences through your careers, all around this topic of, understanding your mind. I'm curious, who's the hardest audience you had? Who's the hardest room you've ever stood in front of? And once they got it, what was the outcome there?
I think the hardest is, and this is going to sound very weird, is people who already agree and already think that they know what you're talking about. I feel like that's the hardest has been for us. People are like, yeah, and then they shut off the listening because they already know. And the only thing that kind of we have to do, that we have learned, is that, like, if you want to open up, I'm gonna speak for myself. If you want to open up me, all you have to do is listen and be open, and then I'll open up. And I think that knowledge have helped us no matter where we go, that if we just listen rather than talk at someone, we'll open the door to like a joint space where we can actually do something. And if that's your intention, actually the people who do resist, or the people that might think you're full of shit initially, or don't know who you are, or thinking like, why are you here? Like, what are you talking about? If you truly listen and are just there, those things tend to be easier actually to handle, because those are just initial reactions that are normal when people are not used to being listened to, or not used to people actually caring, or used to people trying to be there for them. So that to me isn't that hard in a way, because it's normal reaction. I can feel them in myself, so that's just normal. I think it's harder to reach people when they've turned off their listening and they don't really want to learn anything. In a way, resistance is still open, in a way, resisting because there's something happening. So that would be my, the hardest one that people already know and have shut off their listening. And at that point, you can just try your best and see if they'll, if they want to listen with you.
Yeah.
Well, I think also one of the reasons that we're excited to do this incubator together is because I don't know if Anna and Brooke, you would say the same thing, but I think often the people that we work with that, have faced an enormous amount of adversity in their life, or as Jarell said, they're digging deep because they're literally in captivity in that moment. And so there's sometimes an openness that's sort of forced by necessity of the situation of some of the people we're working with, whether it's in Gaza or Southside Chicago or whatever. But one of the groups that we also want to continue to work with are leaders of organizations that are trying to benefit the world, that are trying to create social impact. Those are the people sometimes that are the hardest to reach, because they're highly educated, they've been successful, they have, for all intents and purposes, pretty secure lives, but they're up against the same thing that every single one of us is up against, which is there are limitations in our thinking that we don't see. And there are certain assumptions about society and the capacity of humans that we have, that we don't realize we have, that get in the way of our work taking bigger leaps and having greater impact on the world and solving those challenges faster than we currently are. So we're very much of the philosophy that this is an every person thing, that we all have to come together and look in the direction of the mind and new ways of thinking and new ways of tapping into human resilience as the solution to the world's problems. And sometimes the people who have the most degrees and success and money in their bank account are the ones that are have the most trouble hearing that. But we definitely have observed that it helps if everyone can be sitting around the same metaphorical table looking in this direction, because then we can begin to make really big change together.
Yeah. That's a super important point as well, because, I think our default is to look, even in our conversations, is to look at who we're serving as the audience here. But it's actually the impact of this way of seeing the world actually started with each of us on the screen right now, was the recipient of that insight first, before we decided that, we need to share this with somebody. Somebody needs to know what I now understand. And so for those leaders out there that are watching this, this is not just about the audience you're serving. This actually starts with you, as Mara said, because it will unpack a potential that you don't even realize that you have. And then you can share that with more people. So that's actually a great, thanks for that, Mara, because that's a great segue into where I wanted to go next, which was, scaling what you do. It's very difficult. There's one Anna, there's one Brooke, there's one Mara and Eric, and there's one Jarell. And so I'm curious, though, as you look around the space that you operate in, what are some other areas that you're really anxious or excited to make some inroads into, taking what you've learned so far and expanding into those areas? Anything come to mind? Let's start with Brooke.
I know here at Spark, and because we're in Florida, the two areas that we really see potential in, well, we see problems, but also potential are both the foster care system and human trafficking. So those are systems that are in place right now that either don't have a lot of attention towards them. The human trafficking is happening under our noses and is a symptom of the misuse of the mind, the way we see it very clearly. Tampa's number 3 in the nation for human trafficking, so it's very prevalent and it's happening to our children in our schools. And we were actually turned on to it by students that we were teaching in schools who were telling us about their own trafficking experiences. But then also the foster care system. There's far more, just in Tampa alone, kids in foster care than there are beds. And I can just see clearly that these systems are in place to help, but there are so many solutions that are uncovered. And if we worked together and looked at the source of where the problems came from, instead of trying to just like throw band-aids on, let's buy more beds, or let's build more buildings to house more kids. If you get to the foundation of the problem, then you stop increasing it, right?
Right.
So working with other leaders in our community is just the sense of that is really exciting to me, because as Mara said, once people start to see their own limitations, leaders in these companies see where they thought there would never be a solution, so let's just do this. Once they start to see those limitations as just thought created limitations and possibly not true, opportunities and possibilities just show up. And to be in a group of people in the incubator for a year to kind of just go through that process with other leaders, and I'm just really excited about the potential of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Jarell, you talked about your own experience, but as I understand it now, you're shifting your focus and direction towards youth that are maybe in the early stages of getting into some trouble or finding their way through society. And so talk about that. Where do you see the opportunity with that audience in your community? Where do you see that going based on what you've learned?
I mean, it's tough, but it's inspiring at the same time. I mean, I feel like just the temperature in the community with the youth, and those who are already in captivity. I just hearing one moment of insight from those guys is enough, right? Because it's like the process of the proof happening, right? So just even hearing one person is it's like, okay, I think we got something here, right? And not just going off of my own experience, because I'm an older man now, but I'm still childlike too, because I spent so much time in captivity that it's like I'm adjusting that time that I didn't have out here, right? So it's almost like I'm working from a younger age also, and it's different. I mean, this will make you feel younger when you get the insight. It's healthy, right? It's a health thing, right? But I do see a potential thing. Like I mean, starting with the youth is everything. Like that's where it has to start. It has to start there, because that's our future, right? So if we nurture our future, I mean, then we're going to be good.
Yeah, I know. Last weekend, I was on a conversation with Eric and Mara and some of the youth in the Rebels for Peace program, and it was amazing for me to hear, the answers to questions about how this insight had changed the way they saw, their own futures, right? And I loved the fact, and this is credit to everybody that's involved in that program, but they focused actually on the way they saw other people. They didn't focus on like themselves and like, well, I'm going to be able to go off and be, successful. They saw that they could have more empathy for the kids that were walking beside them in school than they had before. And that was the most powerful thing that came up for them when the question was asked of what the change has been, right? Which really gets to the heart of what the pain that they would have been feeling about not being able to feel that empathy for their fellow human beings, growing up, and to feel this sort of animosity all the time. And I've got to think, Anna, in the work within the prisons, like that's got to be, I'm imagining part of unlocking this too, is that, their relationship with society is one that's been, painted by all kinds of outside forces. So how does the work that you do there change the way, the prisoners that are hopefully soon to leave prison, how does it change the way they look at society as they're about to exit?
Well, I think their minds are more open, so they feel there's more possibility and more options. Because if just from your own point of view, if you see your world as very limited and you can't see beyond that, you can't see that there's much hope for the community, for the community that you live in, not just for yourself but for other people. And I think that we've got some youth who are about to come back to the community, and that they notice that some of their peers, are still doing the same thing, and they're still, and they're looking and saying, I just can't, why are they doing the same old shit? Like, because once you know better, you do better, which is, something that they start to see, that there's so much more possibility. And so then what they want to do when they get out is actually help their peers and other people in their community to see beyond what seemed like the only future that they have, which is gang banging and doing the things that they do, that there's so much more possibility. So you see a lot of hope and a lot of excitement and a lot of possibility. And I think, within the prison, they get into, they have a lot more understanding and compassion for people that are still getting into trouble, because they see that, oh my God, because sometimes once you start to see your own mind, it's so much easier to see, like, look what they're doing. They're just getting caught up, and it doesn't make any, what are they doing? Like, and so I think there's more compassion. And, one of our supervisors has said, that our program is helping change the culture in prison, because, everything's getting de-escalated. Because if there's a potential fight that's going to happen, or potential disagreement, and you've got one person who understands their own mind and see how it works, then it doesn't make sense to kind of launch into that and start firing hand grenades or chucking logs onto the fire. So there's a lot of, and I think that across the board of people that have joined our program, it's like they feel more at peace inside. They see more potential in themselves and then in their community around them, and therefore there's more possibilities. And then it's just like, we talk about this ripple effect, but it really is, because, once someone starts to have, and that's the other thing, the amount of, like, there's so many entrepreneurs in prison, like the creative thinking that you point out how brilliant people are. Now, it may be in a really kind of skewed direction, but absolutely brilliant. And all it takes is a little bit of, like, looking at the world a little bit differently, and that same creative capacity and entrepreneurship goes in a different direction. Then they just fly, because that they've had a lot of creative juju. It just keeps going in the wrong direction because they didn't know better. But it's brilliant. Like some of the things you get told that people are just like, wow, my God, I've never thought. You just can't even imagine. Just incredible. But so I think that it's just with a little bit of understanding of, then the potential of what's possible is just kind of exponential in a direction that's really helpful and positive to themselves, their families, and their communities.
Wow. Well, yeah, I heard an interview with, I don't know if you're familiar with Greg Boyle, that runs Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles for gangs. Yeah. And I heard him say it's amazing when you put two rival gang members on a stand side by side to make a croissant in the morning, how they can all of a sudden find a way to see the humanity in each other. That was a beautiful way to say everything we're saying, is you change the context, get them to see each other in a new way, and you unleash this amazing possibility. So Mara and Eric, you've sort of been sort of a go-to, I think, for a lot of people that are interested in learning more about sort of the mind and about how this understanding might be deployed to different problems around the world. You've got lots of partnerships. What's the one space that you're like, and I know Mara, you're like, every once in a while, you're like, God, we got to do something about that. What's that one thing for you guys that you know that there's an opportunity to do something about, and you would invite people that are watching this who are interested in that problem to come and learn more about the work that you're all doing to see how that could apply to something outside of what you're doing right now?
Well, it's funny to hear you say that, because I do go through different phases where I get really juiced up about an issue, like the environmental crisis. It's like, oh, come on. And it, like Jarell said, it's inspiring, but also daunting when you can see a solution, but it's also seemingly such a big, complicated issue in the world at the time. So my answer to your question actually would be, I think that there is a shift, and we want to be a part of facilitating the ease and the rapidness of that shift to begin to see the core foundation of all of our problems and how they're interconnected. And I think that there's a movement toward that in understanding biology and medicine and human health, as well as the environment and things like pandemics, as well as racial disparity, that these are not actually separate issues, that they're all kind of these spokes of a tire that spawn out from one hub. And that's the issue that we really want to solve in the IOS Collective, in One Solution, in this global change incubator, is to help people begin to see that at the source of solving the environmental crisis, at the source of solving the revolving door of the criminal justice system, at the source of our healthcare issues, really does lie in the human understanding of the mind and our state of consciousness and how that reflects out to the world. If we can begin to work together and partner to look there and solve our problems there, to Brooke's point, we're then not figuring out how to spend time and money and resources building more beds for more foster care, it takes us out of the symptom solving hamster wheel and puts us more at the source, so that we can begin to make real change collaboratively on all of these issues at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, and I think what I see is kind of missing, and always where we're heading, is that it's so tempting to go the intervention route only, because there's so many people that need help in the world, and they need to feel better, and like you really need to help a lot of people quickly, because people are suffering and people are not doing well. So, but I'm inspired about people who are interested in changing systems, maybe even policy, big business, entrepreneurs, people who are creating the fabric of society from a certain lens. Because if not, when people create that society, that produces a certain amount of strain on humans, and then you can help them from the result of that. But you got to ask yourself, where is this constant flow coming from? And it's like drinking from a hose. It's like, it's too much. You can't take it all. You got to look at like how society is created, and the people and the collection of people that are doing that based on what they see, based on a certain paradigm maybe, or a certain way of running things. And that part of it, anyone who's inspired about dealing with that on one part of it or the whole part of it, I think we would love for people who are interested in that. The business world, entrepreneur policy, systems changing, those people, that would be amazing to work more with those people and see who wants to kind of run those things or create initiatives that are trying to do that.
Love that. So systems change. It's interesting you both said that. I yesterday was on the UN Sustainable Development Goals page, And it just sparked me to start thinking, oh, you're welcome, Brooke, sparked me to think about which of these challenges that they've put out there are actually not solvable using what we're talking about today. And I couldn't find one, right? And so, like, for those watching and those that see this video, this is for sustainable development goals oriented problems. This is about social impact, not just with communities that are in challenging situations, as we've talked about today, but for all kinds of the issues that are around us every day. And you may have a hard time connecting, like, what am I going to learn going through 10 months, learning about Anna's program or Brooke's program or behind the scenes with, Rebels for Peace or One Solution. But you will get the insights that allow you to open up your mind to how to solve the problem that you're passionate about. I remember last time we talked, Anna, that prisons wasn't your area of focus. It just became, you had an insight that, oh, this could really help that population. Then you went and did something with it. And I think the same is possible for anybody that comes into the incubator with us next year to say, wow, I never considered how that could unlock the problem I've been focused on all this time. So it is a very open invitation for those that are interested in social change, whether that's at a local level or a global level. You will get an insight into how to do the solution to what you're focused on by being part of these conversations. So maybe we could spend the last few minutes, we'll talk a little bit about the incubator itself. It's obviously, we're in COVID time, so it's a unique setup. February to October, end of October, November timeframe next year. And it's a mix of some sort of training, but also the part I'm most excited about is the shadow opportunities to spend time with each of you behind the scenes to see your day-to-day work and the impact that you're making. So maybe if each of you could take a moment to share sort of what you're most excited about sharing and having people see in the work you do and how you think that might impact, those that are going to join us. Brooke, we'll start with you.
I think the shadowing part is the most exciting to me, only because I've seen the benefit that it's had on myself growing in this work, but also on other people. There's something about going into a situation that isn't necessarily what you're up to in the world, right? Like just observing, for me, it was observing businesses. I wasn't really working with businesses, but I got the chance to observe it. And anytime you see someone kind of start to understand their own mind, and then you see it again with this population or again with this population, it expands your mind, right? It just kind of expands your own mind, and then you see things differently. And that's the whole point of finding new solutions, right? Is seeing something we haven't seen yet. So, at Spark, we work, like we said, with human trafficking, but we also work with the foster care system, the education system, and young people in an internship program next year. So all of that is available to watch in all different kinds of settings, in schools and jails and in after school programs and other nonprofit organizations programs. But also what's really exciting to me about the incubator is I'm envisioning it kind of being like a think tank, right? So you take what you've seen in the shadow experience, and everyone in the incubator is going to be working on, maybe a few people are working on the same things together, or you're working on your own kind of whatever you join for issue, and you come together and share what you've learned, and you just have like a sounding board of other people that are in the same mental space as you to think about new creative ways to go about your work.
Right. And as I understand it, Brooke, you've also, and I think everybody is making available some of the intellectual property that you've actually developed at the Spark Initiative. So for those that, I'm sure each of you gets asked on a regular basis, could you help us do this in our community, or could you help us, in our state? What will people get access to from the work you've done at the Spark Initiative, through the incubator, that they could then take and do something with afterwards?
Sure. We have the Spark mentoring programs, which are evidence-based curricula for young people that teach the same understanding we're going to be kind of going through in the incubator. They're evidence-based. We are on a CASEL list, which is a social emotional learning approved list in the United States. And so they'll have access to all 4 of those programs, as well as the training for those programs. So we'll do a separate training for people that want access to the curriculum as well.
Fantastic. And Anna, with the work the Insight Alliance is doing, what's somebody that might have an interest specifically in the criminal justice system, or a curiosity to see how you've done what you do? What is their experience going to be like next year as they go through the incubator?
I don't know. I'd say having their minds blown by the human potential, the untapped human potential. And I think you see people, in any situation, whether it's in prison and they're locked up, or they're locked up in a prison of their own minds, is that you start to tap into the human potential of what's possible. And then that's what I'm really excited about myself in the incubator, is just kind of being part of a wider community group, just kind of, seeing what's possible when you tap into that incredible potential of the mind to make, global change, or to make whatever kind of change people are looking to make in their own lives, or in their communities, or with the work that they do, or in the criminal justice system. But I think, we can look at prisons and think they're people that are just no good, and we've thrown them away, because they're sort of, there's nothing useful there. But the genius, creativity that comes out of the minds of people in prison, I think is just something that, to me, I'm just constantly blown away by. So I think you see it there, you realize, really it's everywhere. We tap into that, and then anything is possible. Yeah.
Beautiful. And Jarell, if we have, people interested in youth programming, or, helping youth at risk in their communities, what is the experience of, hanging around with Anna going to be like? And maybe Jarell will join us during the incubator as well, for those that might have some interest in youth programming. What are they going to learn about the impact that we can make on young people that are, going through challenging times in their life? What would you encourage people to come and learn from the work that Anna and yourself are doing? Oh, we get you to unmute, Jarell.
Unmute.
It's all right. Happens to all of us, man.
Yeah. I would just, encourage people to give it a chance. Like sometimes I feel like we're real hesitant when we embark on something that's new, but it's actually like, practical to our lives, right? It's almost like, we're going on down a water slide, everybody lines up, but when you get up there, it's a different story, but the drive that pushes you to still go down that slide is like, okay, there's pressure behind me, and that's the people that are waiting, right? And then there's the thing, and there's going to be happiness at the end of that, right? You just have to jump, right? So it's just like you go, and then once it's over, you just scream, you're excited, you're just like, yay, and you're trying to tell the next person, like, look, go, it's easy, I made it, I'm happy, right? And they're just like, they were just going through what you're going through, right? And then it keeps going, and the process keeps going, right? And that's how it is, right? And it's like we have to encourage that for folks, like, hey man, just take the jump, like I promise you it's going to be okay, and that's what we live for, right? And like coming out of captivity, like that's what you want to see. You're fighting for that peace of mind, that happiness, and it's like you can't put a price on seeing that with everyone else around you, right? So like that's what it is for me. And so when people get that feeling is naturally receptive, right? It's naturally receptive, and you naturally want to encourage it. So when we get there, it's going to be unstoppable.
Yeah. I think that's the best analogy I've heard for creating change of the water slide. And you get to the bottom and you're running to the top for the next time, right? It's like
You're ready back up, right? You want to do it
Yep.
again and again
Yeah,
because it's like I
that's
can do it,
beautiful. You can feel your energy there, Jarell. And I do think that sharing the energy of those that have been impacted by the work of these organizations is so critical, and is fundamentally a big part of the experience. Is going to be not just to hear the how, but to hear the impact, right? And the way it's changed people's lives, and to feel your energy. Mara and Eric, we're going to have the Rebels for Peace group that you've been working with. We're going to have Crystal, who's doing work in the community and with parents. And I know that there's energy from those guys that people are going to feel. So what are you really inviting people to come and experience when they come to be part of the Global Change Incubator next year?
Well, in addition to everything that's said, I think what people will experience is an increase in energy and potential and hope and clarity and determination that I hadn't experienced previously, and it comes from stuff falling off of our minds. And I know everyone who runs a nonprofit or runs a business or trying to do good, while we're trying to do good, we usually have so much on our minds and so much pressure and so much things that it's just like there's so many things to think about and do because there's so many things to change and we don't have enough time to do it. And this incubator helps kind of see through that, where that becomes in the background and you are able to kind of have this battery that doesn't deflate in a way. It kind of recharges while you use it. That's what I'm excited about, because there's so many people we talk to every day that want to do amazing things, but I can also see the pressure, the stress, the overwhelm, and being in this is like going through the shadowing. It's like going through the modules. It's like it will take stuff off of your mind and bring to forefront the essence of what you're trying to do. So it's like a focus increaser that doesn't take energy in a way. So that's what I'm excited about, because the business people and nonprofits, the change makers, they need that lift. We need to create the environment for them to do what they want to be doing. And this helps with that.
I don't know that I could add anything more to that. That's exactly what I'm looking forward to about this, and the connecting with everyone from that space. So I can feel it as Ada talks about it, like, oh yeah, that's a good thing. And I want that in myself and I want that for other people. But then I also want to collaborate, partner, and work with people who are all coming from that space, looking at making a positive impact in the world. So that's what excites me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm excited. And I'm sure people that are watching this are, perhaps in different boats, right? Some are going to be super excited. And then it's going to come to a question of the means to participate, right? And then there's going to be others that have the means, and whether this fits into where they're at right now or not. One of the really exciting things for me is the scholarship opportunity that you've created to sponsor seats in the incubator for those that might be in the first group, right? They might be involved in trying to create social change. They might be, active as a youth leader or an advocate in their community, but being part of the program might not be financially within their means. So I'm excited that there's corporate partners out there that we know put out very nice messages around corporate social responsibility and being a good community partner, and we know that their employees are looking for action behind those words. And I think one of the beautiful opportunities here is to find people, whether it's within your business or within your community, who are doing important work, who would really benefit from this experience, and to put a little bit of corporate dollars behind facilitating that experience and then empowering those people to make a difference with your support. And so it is a call to action for the corporate and business community as well to say, like, let's get behind some people that are change makers. Let's get behind people like those that you see on the screen here who are dedicating their lives to making a difference. We know there's a lot more people out there that fall into that camp. And it would be great that we line up business behind them. So my understanding on the website, ioscollective.org, you'll see a link to the Global Change Incubator, but you'll also see a link to sponsor a spot in the incubator. And all the information to do that is listed there. Some great videos that explain the work of everybody that we've heard today. And, you know, I'm excited to be part of it next year. I'm excited to see the kinds of people that are going to be drawn to learn from everything that you guys do. I'm excited to learn from each of you and to be part of that experience and to ride that water slide with Jarell all the way through the year next year. That's going to be a hell of a ride. So any closing words that you'd like to add from anybody? Maybe I'll go backwards this time. So we'll go to one solution to lead us off. Final words to the audience.
I would say you said it perfectly. Yeah.
And if anyone has any questions, they can reach out. We're happy to set up a meeting to talk with you more about it, or do another one of these lives and explain something more specific if people feel that there's questions that they have.
And I would say to the people who want to sponsor, you have two options. One is to sponsor someone, and one is to become part of it yourself while you're sponsoring. So we have an option where you, as a business leader, join the incubator while you're sponsoring someone. So that's the ultimate experience, because then you get to go through it, you get to transform yourself, you get to be part of it, and you get to see what you've also been part of sponsoring. So that's an option we're really excited about.
That is a lot of fun when you go down the water slide with somebody else at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
One of those tandem tubes.
Exactly.
Totally. Yeah. Anna?
I can't, I've got no more words. I think everyone said it beautifully, and to add more, it's just adding more for no reason. So I'm going to keep quiet, and I just appreciate you from asking such good questions and being, you know, and I'm excited for you to be, you know, partnering with this. So I appreciate your time in facilitating this conversation.
Well, thank you. Jarell, you're our rookie on the show here. So what's you've inspired me clearly already, and I think everybody else, but anything else to an audience of people that might be for the first time hearing about how, you know, the power of the mind can unlock important social issues? What would you say to somebody that might be sort of wondering, is this for me? Is this the right way for me to learn about how to do what I want to do better? What would you say to them?
I would tell them to reach for that which is best for you, right? And that could be, you know, vast and, you know, just a vast thing to, you know, in reference to that. But, you know, it's, I mean, there's so many ways I can go from that, but I would just say, look at the condition of your surroundings, right? And then how do you feel about that, right? And then what do you want to do about that? Like, what do you see? What differences do you want to see about that, right? And then your mind starts to get going and thinking, you know, because there are a lot of people that are hesitant and just don't want nothing to, you know, to do because they don't see a good way of getting there, right? So I would just tell people to, you know, reach for those things which are good for you, you know, and you won't lose. You can't lose. You can't lose there.
Great message. Brooke,
Thank you.
We've used up a lot of words, but you get to have the final one.
I was just thinking, oh, I don't have anything to say, but then I thought, gosh, after 2020 and the year everyone has been, like, this conversation has just made me really excited for 2021.
Cool.
I hear
Thank
you,
you.
sister. I hear you.
Likewise.
Onward and upward.
Yeah.
And yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody. It's great to see everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe. Stay
Appreciate
healthy.
it.
Very much.
Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Holiday.
Take care.
Bye.